Good morning. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. I'm Tony Haggerty, and I'm delighted to be joined by Ryan McGinley. It's Friday the 6th of Feb. It's Friday, Ryan, so you're all days on Monday and Fridays. That's my days. How are you, Ryan? Seemed like a while since we did one of these together, but there you go.
I know it has felt like a wee while. Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, I've got to be honest with you. And I've feeling the start of February cold coming on, can really feel it. But just going to push through it, power through it, talk about some Celtic. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about today, which is always good. It always makes these morning briefings a little bit easier. But yeah, delighted to be on with you, and thank you to everybody for joining us thus far.
I say it seems like ages. It was only Monday, but it felt like ages even before then. So I mean,
Monday, the transfer window was still open, and it feels like ages since that transfer window shut. It has been, a lot of people talk about how quickly the weeks go in the start of the year. Some people say that January is quite a long month. I feel that this has been the longest week so far of the year. So many things to talk about, not helped by the fact that Celtic didn't play on Wednesday evening due to the postponement of their match against Aberdeen. I think that's elongated the week even longer. But yeah, looking forward to watching Celtic tomorrow and getting back to business.
Welsh Paul's giving you some hugs, Ryan, because you said you were feeling under the weather. But as usual, we'll power through it like the true professional that you are, and or we are. We'll try it anyway.
Or I try to be.
Yes, indeed. People might dispute that claim with both of us. That's fair enough. Yes, lots to talk about, as you said, Ryan. Excuse me. Straight off the bat, Brian Wilson came out last night, said he was willing to open up dialogue with, engage with the Celtic supporters. Stop short of calling it an olive branch, Ryan, because we'll need to see about that dialogue. Hopefully it's meaningful dialogue. But yeah, Celtic have reached out to the Green Brigade, the boys, the Celtic Supporters Association, and various other groups regarding the ongoing rift between the stands and the boardroom. Nearly said the bedroom there, I don't know why I nearly said that, but stands in the boardroom. But there you go. And, the Celtic Collective have called for the removal of Michael Nicholson. They also want the unbanning of the Green Brigade, and they've called for the restrictions on fan media to be lifted. And also they've voted in favour of a boycott before Saturday, during Saturday's match, Scottish Cup match against Dundee. Now, Brian Wilson came out last night. He said various things, but he spoke about the frustrations and the immediate issues of the supporters and the problems that exist. He said they were going to turn their attention to that. He said he wanted unity in the stadium. Said he'd reached out to various supporters groups, and he said he didn't want anything to distract from what's happening inside the stadium. He wanted the great atmosphere to return and everybody to get behind the team, because that's what he's experienced in all these decades of going to Celtic Park. But he said it was up to each individual to determine whether a boycott outside or inside the stadium was helpful to unity. Now, I'll tell you where I stand on this, Ryan. I would never, I've said this many times on this platform, and I'll say it again, I don't dream of telling any Celtic supporter how to support their football club and how that support manifests itself. Personally, I'm not in favour of boycotts. That's just me, and I'll speak for myself on that. But see, if you're willing to boycott Saturday's match against Dundee, then I have no issue at all with that. It's very much each to their own. The problem I see, and I've made this point before, you can come in a second, I am witnessing a form of Celtic cannibalism where people making their views and points, trying to get their views and their points across, and people just taking chunks out of them. And as I said before, it's a Celtic that I don't recognise and I don't like and I don't want to see. But as far as boycotts are concerned, each to their own, Ryan. If Celtic supporters want to boycott on Saturday, fine. And if Celtic supporters want to go on Saturday, fine. I still feel that keeping up the pressure by chanting "sack the board" and all Celtic fans against the board still a useful weapon. The Celtic board can't read the room, but they can hear a room, Ryan.
Yeah, and I've got to make my own opinion clear on this. It's a divisive protests and boycotts to be divisive. That's how they're made up. That's are not supposed to be nice things that happen, and that's why there's so many different opinions. I just want to underline the point that it doesn't make you any less or any more of a Celtic fan or supporter if you choose to boycott or not. It's personal opinion at the end of the day, and I want to make that clear. That is my take on it. I'm seeing a lot of things on social media, and I do agree with you about the people eating each other up almost, or who are so desperate to give their take on it or their opinion on it.
Yeah.
But it's coming in a way that's talking down other supporters, which is where I kind of draw the line. You know, it's a personal choice at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I would say is that the protests are clearly working, because I don't think that this 5-minute Celtic TV interview with Brian Wilson would have transpired if there wasn't talk of a boycott. There might have been. I might be proved wrong. They might have done an update after the transfer window anyway. And if that was to be the case, then I'll stand by and happily be corrected by Brian Wilson. But I just think that the timing is far too close between the two, or to not suggest to suggest a link between the two. There must be a link between the two. I can understand why Brian Wilson's came out and had that message. People can do what they want. They can choose to do the boycott. It's not. There will be people boycotting the game of that. There is no doubt. Regardless of the fact that Celtic didn't play on Wednesday and people might be hungry for their weekly fix of football, there will be fans that boycott this game, but there will also be fans that go to the game. It won't be an empty stadium. So it's up to personal opinion. I think regardless of people should be respectful of other people's choice matter, because it's all about choice here. It's personal opinion, and I'm somewhere in the middle of it all, to be honest with you, Tony.
I think you use a word there, respectful, Ryan. I just think when Celtic supporters are respectful of each other, they can achieve wonderful things. And when there is real unity and harmony, and I've not seen that in a while. And again, that's entirely up to the individuals concerned. I know how my support manifests itself, and I there is no right and wrong in this situation with regards, but the tie that binds is Celtic Football Club. And everybody wants what's best for this football club. Everybody wants to see a successful football club. And I don't know about you, Ryan. It's kind of my resolve has been, determined, steely now and determined. I'm desperate to win this title now. I really am, and I'm going to back this team to the hilt. Mark Laniel as well, who came out the other day and said he was pleased with the transfer window. I just think that at this moment in time, that unity, Celtic need that unity, the team need that unity, and get right behind for this final push, the home stretch. It's going to be difficult. You saw the way that Pittodrie game has now manifested itself in the fixtures list. There is 3 difficult away games now slotted in March. Fine, you deal with it. I'm not going to moan about it, Ryan. It is what it is. But if you want to progress in Europe and you want to be a successful football team, you're going to have to win these football matches, Ryan, which, again, is everything that it's about at Celtic. Winning football matches makes you a successful team. And for a wee while there, I thought we'd got away from that fact that the most important factor in all this is winning football matches. And the Celtic supporters can play a huge part in helping the club win football matches. And also the board can play a big part by making this meaningful dialogue, Ryan, and not a tick box exercise.
Absolutely. But tell me why these protests and why this unrest is prevalent within the Celtic support at this moment. It's because of the way that the board, the hierarchy, and the football club in general have acted. And it's been building up over a long period of time. The mismanagement of the club on the park and off the park has been clear for all to see. Sure. And I see comments saying, oh, it's not the right time for a protest. You could easily look at that the other way and say it's the perfect time for a protest because it's disruptive and a key part of the season, depending on what your view of Celtic is at the moment. You know, one person's terrible time for a protest could be another person's amazing time for a protest, and that's where personal opinion comes into it. Each to their own. People can choose what they want to do. We'll see that on Saturday. The TV cameras will see it on Saturday. We'll see how busy Celtic Park is. To be honest, Tony, I feel like there's been a little bit of a protest all season from the Celtic fans at Celtic Park, and I've been present. They're sitting in my seat in the North Stand. It has been quiet for large parts of this season. There has been some apathy that's crept in this season amongst the Celtic support. People aren't happy with the way the club has been run at the moment, and it just feels like this is an escalation. I welcome the dialogue between Brian Wilson and the supporters groups. Quite interesting that a number of Celtic supporters groups were named, but the Celtic Collective wasn't named. It was more to do with individual groups rather than the collective as a whole. I'm hoping that's so that they're naming the individual groups rather than disregarding what the Celtic fans collective bring to the table. But that could be me potentially reading too much into it. And the fact that they did name the Green Brigade and the boys could suggest that they want to treat every group accordingly.
We'll find out in the fullness of time, Ryan. You know, no getting away from the fact that protests are divisive, but there's been protests all season at Celtic Park for a reason, because those in the hierarchy have let the club down. And we're on with fourth manager this season. Started with Brendan Rodgers, had Martin O'Neill for an interim spell, Wilfred Nancy, and now back to Martin O'Neill. So that tells you all you need to know. And as I said before, there's no hiding place for the board members. Brian Wilson saying they're coming out and they have to talk now, Ryan, because as I said earlier, they've turned a one-horse race into a three-horse race, and it takes some doing that. It's incredible that has happened. So I'm glad that they're coming out to speak, but as I say, it can't just be lip service. They really do have to have some kind of strategy moving forward and make the dialogue and discussions meaningful. Because as I say, if it's a tick box exercise, then, you know, what's the point? You know, that this really has to go well. But as I say, protests, whatever form they take, and I think that's the worst thing that can happen when supporters become apathetic towards the football club. So they're clearly having an effect. Clearly why Brian Wilson can see what's happening here, and he doesn't want it to affect Celtic in the home stretch. You know, this is a huge, important run of games now. 14 in the league. Europa League playoff tie against Stuttgart, and the Scottish Cup games coming up, starting with Dundee on Saturday. I don't care, right? I just want to win them all. I want to go on a run. I really want to drive this home, and each and every individual Celtic supporter can, their support for the club can manifest itself in whatever way they want in this over these series of games. But we just want Celtic to be successful, and hopefully someone that might contribute to that, Ryan. A nice wee segue into the next part that we're going to talk about. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain on his way. Various reports last night that the deal had stalled, and then all of a sudden he was on his way 6 months with the option of a year. Potentially he's flying up today. We will find out more about that today when Martin O'Neill speaks to preview said Dundee game. But are you excited by that, Ryan? I wrote a column about it there at Sarah. I'll put it in the system. If you haven't read it, you can have a look at that for your delectation, guys. See what you think about that. But I'm quite excited by Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain coming, Ryan, I have to say.
2 words, Tony. A forename and a surname. Aaron Moy. That's the impact that I want Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain to have between now and the end of the season. And you could argue, in fact, well, you wouldn't really be arguing. A lot of people would have the view that he's a better player than Aaron Moy when both were at the top of their game. Both were playing their trade in the Premier League. Oxlade-Chamberlain's resume speaks for itself. He's played for Arsenal and Liverpool, also had time at Besiktas too. I had a lot of doubt when Celtic were linked with him and on Monday. That was after we did the morning briefing where they were linked with Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. The more I think about it, and the nice things, the positives that I hear coming out from the Arsenal camp as well on how he is, how his condition is at the moment, the way that he's been training with the under-21s, it could potentially be quite an exciting signing for Celtic if you can get even half the player that was at Arsenal and Liverpool. If that's the case, then you're bringing in an experienced body, a good egg, a player that's been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, etc. Whatever you want to call, whatever you want to say about him. He's a former England international. He brings experience. He brings a know-how of winning league titles as well. He was there for Liverpool when he won the league, won the Champions League, although his impact there was quite low at that point.
Yeah.
But, you know, even being in and around that squad can help mould a player, and the experiences that he'll have had playing for England, playing for Arsenal and playing for Liverpool can surely help Celtic in the coming weeks and months. And I'm looking at the lack of him being registered for Europe as more of a positive than a negative, because Celtic could use him in the quick turnaround for European games. You're bringing in a guy who's been a leader at the past two clubs that he's been at, the past two Premier League clubs that he's been at, and Besiktas too. He can have that quick turn. I'm looking at those games against Stuttgart, Rangers, not the Stuttgart game obviously, but Celtic play against Stuttgart and they'll play against Rangers and Aberdeen. You could bring in somebody like Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain who could be another leader in that midfield and who isn't scared of shooting from distance as well. Could be a very, very handy weapon for Celtic to utilise in the coming weeks and months. So yeah, I think there's a lot more positives than negatives. Obviously, every time you talk about Oxlade-Chamberlain, you talk about his injuries and the injury history that he's had. If Celtic can keep him fit between now and the end of the season, then I've got no doubt that he can play a massive part in success for Celtic this season.
Two things for me, right, that we're telling Martin O'Neill, whose face lit up with the thought of signing Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Absolutely.
He's a Martin O'Neill signing. You resurrect this guy and give him a platform and say, go and do what you did. Go and show them the player that you are and you always have been. And, you know, forget about your injury history. It smacks of the whole kind of, remember he said to John Hartson, I don't care about your knee. You need to have a hole in your heart for me not to sign you. I think he's saying the same thing here to Oxlade-Chamberlain. Forget about what's happened. Come up here. You'll love it. You'll do a turn. And he was really enthusiastic about that. And I also remember saying when Joe Hart left the football club that he would be the best unpaid ambassador for Celtic. And I've made the point in that article. Joe Hart's words could help. He might have performed one last save for Celtic. If you get this guy on board and he sings, help save Celtic's season. And because Martin O'Neill was saying Joe Hart spoke to him, not on Celtic's behalf, but you can bet your bottom dollar that Joe Hart was like, get yourself up there. You'll love it. It's terrific. You know, I wish I had did it sooner. And these things carry weight. They carry gravitas. Fellow footballers telling you about their experience and the chance to work under somebody like Martin O'Neill at this stage in his career as well. I don't care what anybody says, Ryan. That's box office to a footballer, and also coming into a club where success is demanded. You're not coming just to make up numbers. You're coming to make an impact and win silverware. And I think you could become a big influence in that dressing room, as you've said, Ryan. And the player that, as you say, if you get anything resembling the player that played for Arsenal and Liverpool, you have won a watch. And I take the manager here, his thoughts on him. The manager's desperate to get him on board. He wants him for a reason. So I think it's a win-win. I really do. And I'm quite excited about that prospect. And when I saw the story last night breaking that the deal had stalled, I was kind of like, no way. But no sooner had that story come out than other stories emerged saying that he was flying up today and concluding the deal. So, yep, there's a classy element to Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain even. and I'm all in on that. I'm all on board with that.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, Tony. I just feel as if the move ticks a lot of boxes for Oxlade-Chamberlain as well.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking at it outside of football too. He's got a young family with his partner. His partner's a very famous musician as well, so she's away everywhere as well. But having a base back in the UK, I know he's been in the UK for a while training with Arsenal, but having that permanent base at least for 6 months to maybe another year could help him. It means it's easy for him to travel down to London to see his family, he's based, not just his partner and their child, but also his mum and dad. There was quotes coming out when he was on Ben Foster's podcast where he was talking about the fact that he was away for 8 weeks at a time without seeing his family due to the distance between the UK and Turkey when he was at Besiktas. So I mean, the distance between Scotland and England on a plane, or Glasgow to London and a plane, is 45 minutes, and for a footballer that would be pocket money for him. So I think it ticks a lot of it ticks a lot of boxes for him off the field, but on it as well, it'll give him maybe that renewed sense of drive as well. He's not had a team since August. He's been training since there. He might have been looking at what it's done to the likes of Kasper Schmeichel's career, Joe Hart's career, and thought, I want a bit of that. I want to win some more trophies before my career's up. Also, there's another element to this, and I did read a report this morning that was saying that Arsenal were keen on taking him in a coaching capacity under Mikel Arteta. Who better to learn under than Martin O'Neill for 6 months before potentially another manager to come in for a year and learn under him? I remember Scott Brown did that towards the end of his career when he learned off of when he was taught under Brendan Rodgers and other managers about what it was like to be a manager, and that served him well going into his young managerial career. So if he's doing his coaching badges in the background or learning more and trying to take up coaching ahead of a career after football or a career after his on-field duties, then who better to learn off of than the likes of Martin O'Neill, Sean Maloney, Fotheringham as well. I always feel quite bad calling him Fotheringham. I feel like I should call him Fozzie. Seems like everybody else does. But I think that this move would tick a lot of boxes for Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. And I just want to make my final point on him before I let you back in. I remember this comment that stuck out about 10, 11 years ago. And it was when Southampton were coming back into the fold in the Premier League. I know they're in the Championship at the moment. They're trying to get back up into the Premier League. But the way in which they develop youth players, and that's where Oxlade-Chamberlain started his professional career. Sure. They make good people before they make good footballers at Southampton. They get taught how to do media duties. I think from the very first interview, if and when Oxlade-Chamberlain signs for Celtic, he will capture the imagination of the Celtic support with what he says, because he's a very good speaker. He is a confident speaker, and I think that will come across in his first Celtic TV interview. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and also try stopping him signing a year option if he has the impact and the desired impact that everybody wants and he wins trophies and stuff. It's it's addictive, Ryan, in that sense. So I big up Joe Hart for clearly getting in his head on that sense, but also Martin O'Neill's and just enthusiasm for the whole deal. As you say, he just ticks a lot of boxes for Celtic, and Celtic are a club that sign, good people as well, right? So, and that's a huge driver and a huge factor for Martin O'Neill bringing a guy like that in. And as I say, I think it's a win-win. And he's a quality footballer. You can never get enough quality footballers in your team. Nobody's seen him lately. We'll make a judgment on that if he comes into the fold. But I think it's certainly exciting, and I think Celtic should do that more often. Look around that kind of who's around, and you can get free agents. I'm not talking about make that your sole transfer policy, but if you're going to go for free agents, get them with a bit of pedigree in that sense. And he comes with the best pedigree ever. And also, I just think if somebody can get their claws into him and get a tune out of him, it's the manager that we have at the helm at this minute. I just feel that everything about it is, as you said there, it's a win-win for the player as well. You know what I mean? So, and we've already witnessed Martin O'Neill in action this season. He's performing miracles galore. It's not beyond the realms of possibility they can do another one on Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. He's just that kind of guy that players want to play for them. They'll learn from him. And as you say, the whole coaching badge thing too, if he's going down that route, then, it'd be a brilliant apprenticeship for him. But I actually think that Oxlade-Chamberlain, if he samples playing for Celtic and he drives Celtic to the success that we want, winning the league and the Scottish Cup, and even, well, we'll see how we do in Europe, but I think if he gets a bit of that, he'll not want to give that up easily come the end of the season, and he might extend that for another year, because players just want to play for as long as they can.
Yeah, and I have got no doubt. This is the joy of this. The only doubt that I've got over Oxlade-Chamberlain is his injury record. That's the only doubt that I've got when it comes to the player, because I know that the Celtic shirt can fit Oxlade-Chamberlain because he fit the Arsenal kit, he fit the Liverpool kit, and he fit the England kit when he played for them in the past. So he is capable of playing for Celtic Football Club. It's whether or not his body is still capable of playing top level football, which will be the clincher. And I know a lot of people have been comparing this move potentially to the last sort of big name former Arsenal player to make the move up to Scotland and Aaron Ramsey. I would hope that he has a bigger impact, a more positive impact than Aaron Ramsey had at Rangers, I've got to be honest. Though I've got a good feeling about this one. I've always admired him as a football player and as an individual too. I have watched that goal that he scored against Manchester City about 5 or 6 times since he's been linked with the club. A similar one against Rangers would be absolutely brilliant at Ibrox in the coming weeks, if possible, for the Ox. But he's an exciting name. He's a marketable name as well. He'll be a great ambassador for the club, and you're hoping that he can add to that with what he actually brings on the pitch as well. But I've got to be honest, Tony, the more I talk about him, the more I'm excited about it. And I'm glad that we're getting to an end point with that.
Yeah.
And roll on his debut if and when he signs.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get more on that today, that the Ox signs for Celtic and we can get even more excited about that. Now, Ryan, there's a cup game of association football tomorrow. Celtic take on Dundee, 5:30 kickoff at Celtic Park. Boycotts aside, I think Celtic supporters will be desperate to see their team in action after midweek was cancelled. But you were speaking to me off air and you were saying in a kind of way that might have benefited Celtic to have that week with the new players coming in and chance to assimilate and get to know their teammates in training even more. So we shall hopefully see the benefits of that come Saturday, Ryan. But I think in the backdrop of that, if they do sign Oxlade-Chamberlain, there'll be some real excitement there. A lot of fans will actually want to see him, and hopefully the manager throws him on if the Celtic are in a position to. First and foremost, cup games, Ryan, no second chances, no replays. Just go and win the football match. There's
a lot of exciting elements of this Dundee game, and it's become more exciting because of the fact that Celtic didn't play against Aberdeen. So a lot of players are still waiting on their debuts. There could be 3 debuts, maybe even 4 debuts against Dundee, which is quite exciting, and it shows you that there might all of a sudden be meaningful squad depth in the Celtic and the Celtic setup, which would be brilliant to see. The name that nobody's really talking about, but it seems like at the same time people are starting to talk about him, is Benjamin Arthur. Now, if you've read anything about what Stephen Presley's got to say, if he's half as good as the player that he has likened him to in Virgil van Dijk, or even a 10th of the player that he turned into at Liverpool. No, it wasn't me that said it. It's Stephen Presley that said it. He's put his head on the block with those comments. Granted, he won't want him to have a good debut if it occurs against Dundee, because that's coming against his side. He was the head of development at Brentford, head of individual development at Brentford, a really key role for the London side. So he worked very closely with Benjamin Arthur. High praise indeed for a 20-year-old. My only issue with the deal that Celtic got for Benjamin Arthur is that it wasn't longer. I would have wanted Celtic if they were bringing in a 20-year-old, and I understand that maybe this would have been the case if there was a permanent manager in place, and they've got to make it 6 months just in case, you know, both sides agree that he should go back to his club at the end of the season. I get that. But 18 months, if you were to have given him an 18-month deal to really acclimatise to Celtic and get used to it and get used to first-team football, because he's only played a handful of games at senior level, that could maybe still be the case in the summer if he enjoys it and he shows up well. But 6 months, if he makes an impact in those 6 months, then you know he deserves all the credit in the world. I just want to see. He's a player that's not really getting spoke about amongst the support, but those comments from Stephen Presley, I'm sure will get people talking about what he could potentially bring to the team. He's got a lot of good physical attributes. 6'4", imposing, good in the air, seems to be good with playing out from the back. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can bring to the side. England under-20 international as well, I believe.
Yeah.
Comes from good stock, good pedigree. Maybe tomorrow might come too soon for him, but I do want to see him and see what he can bring to that Celtic backline.
Benjamin Arthur saying to Stephen Presley, thanks very much. no pressure. I get what he means. I understand where Presley's coming from, and that Presley has said, you know, knowledge of the player and the expertise because he's worked with them, and I know he's saying he's in that mould. He's not comparing the two players whatsoever, but in that kind of bracket and mould, and I understand that. So I just, like, you know, you would just say to the Celtic supporters, right, temper your expectations. Let's see this guy. But Presley's telling you he looks the part, you know, like kind of Van Dijk. He's that archetypal defender. He's big, he's strong, and all that kind of stuff. And that's fine. You're like me. We'll judge the eye test and we'll see him, you know, in action, whether it comes too soon tomorrow. But again, that added factor, Ryan, is can you give him minutes? Would you give him minutes? Can you manoeuvre yourself into a position in that football match where you can throw him on and give him minutes and let people see? Because I always feel that players feel comfortable making their debut in front of Celtic at Celtic Park. You know, and I think it's always a good thing for them to do that. They get that lift from the crowd when they come on, stuff like that. So I'd like, if he's going to take his ball, I'd like to see him take it tomorrow. You know, but I've read Presley's comments about him. I've formed no judgments at all. I will look at this player and say, right, okay, and if he gets minutes tomorrow, shows what you got, big guy. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, you're going to hear a lot of players be compared to Virgil van Dijk because Van Dijk is the barometer when it comes to defenders over the past 10 years. I knew it from very early on after watching him play for Celtic that he was going straight to the top. So did Neil Lennon, funnily enough, after a couple of training sessions. He actually said to Van Dijk, enjoy yourself here, enjoy your time here, because you won't be here long, because you'll be moving on in a couple of years. In my opinion, in my personal opinion, bringing that into it, I didn't even think that he needed the move to Southampton to acclimatise to English football. I think he could have went straight from Celtic to Liverpool and he wouldn't have missed a beat. I know that Arsenal were also interested, Leicester were interested too, but that's a side point. Every young defender is going to be compared to Virgil van Dijk because he has been the best defender for the past 5-6 years in the world. And in his first Celtic TV interview, Arthur spoke about that's the player that he models his game on the most. And like that barometer, I think you're going to hear a lot of young defenders say that too, because he has been the benchmark for defenders. And I think Celtic deserve a lot of credit for being one of the first teams to identify Virgil van Dijk and give him that opportunity in the Champions League, in the Scottish Premiership, to where he is now is an incredible feat, and he deserves all the credit in the world. I'm just hoping that Celtic have done their due diligence on this player. He can bring something now, and bring something so much so that there is a conversation to be had in the summer over whether or not he can stay a little bit longer.
Don't get me wrong, I'm quite enthused by Presley's comments, I have to say, which makes me want to see this guy, to see why Stephen Presley would say that at this early juncture. And, and I respect his opinion on that. I think you have to respect Stephen Presley's opinion on that, and because he's managing a Scottish Premiership club who are trying to plot your downfall in the Scottish Cup, and they've picked up of late. So I don't think that this is, the gimme that Celtic fans might assume that it is, Ryan. I think Celtic will have to work hard tomorrow to get a result. But I get that the home stretch of league games and the cup games, it might be a slog at times. So tomorrow I'm just hoping that if Celtic turn it on, that home advantage, press at home, and they do win by a couple of goals and we get a performance. But tomorrow's all about getting through.
Yeah, and John and I were on the briefing before the game was called off on Wednesday, and we were mulling over Martin O'Neill's team selection or potential team selection ahead of the game, and we both agreed that would maybe be one debut in the starting lineup, and that would have been Mvuka, the winger that's been brought in from Lorient. I just think with the amount of time that they've had to train for this Dundee game, they'll have done their preparation for the Aberdeen game. That would have been called off. They've all been called into training on Thursday, I would presume, because they didn't have a game on the Wednesday. I think there's scope for more debuts from the off tomorrow rather than just Mvuka. I think that Junior Adamu could easily start this game if he's ready to go. Benjamin Arthur might be thrown straight in alongside Austin Trusty or Liam Scales, depending on who they go for. Mvuka could be one of the wing options. Could even potentially be a debut for Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain if he's to sign tomorrow and get the clearance ahead of the Scottish Cup game. I would hope that Celtic go through all the processes to make sure that he is registered for that game. Don't want a Stranraer happening to Celtic in that regard. But yeah, I think there'll be more than one debut tomorrow, which in turn might persuade a couple of the boycotting fans to change their mind and go to the game. The fact that there's going to be new talent on show and some existing talent who are already impressing at the moment, and Julian Araujo and Thomas Svanskara.
And Benjamin Nygren.
Absolutely.
I'm out of the equation as well. So, yeah, I think, you're speaking there, Ryan, you're speaking there about players who could potentially make their debut. That's exciting to me. It's been a long time since you've felt really, really enthused about what you might see from a Celtic team. So I'm trying to temper it a bit, but I'm hoping that tomorrow they spring out the traps because they didn't play on Wednesday night and they can make a fast start the way they did against Utrecht. There's the dogs obviously agreeing that they hope Celtic get a fast start. It was ever this. Yeah,
absolutely. But I just before we finish off today's show, I just want to say a massive thank you to the over 900 people that we've got joining us on the stream this morning. We really do appreciate each and every one of you for joining us, both on the live show and coming in at 5 past 10 to join us live and to get involved in the comment section, and those who tune in after the show is finished. If you like what we do and you want to support us just that little bit more, you can join us in www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Martin O'Neill's press conference will be today, so he'll be talking all about potentially Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, team selection ahead of tomorrow, the upcoming boycott, Brian Wilson's comments. All you need to do is go to www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe, and also if you want to support us on YouTube, you can. It's completely free. If you press that subscribe button, you'll be notified when we go live with all of these videos, pre- and post-match videos, interviews, transfer specials, as well as the morning briefings. All you need to do is press that subscribe button, and if you do so, you'll be involved in the live chat as well. It's growing day by day. I can see the same faces, the same names, the same usernames, but I also see new usernames in there, which shows that the Celtic Way briefings and shows are growing, and we really like that. So guys, subscribe and get involved, and we really do appreciate each and every one of you for joining us. It's never ever taken for granted, and we couldn't do it without you, basically.
And before we go, Ryan, just an extension of our condolences and sympathy to John Hartson and his family.
Absolutely.
John's brother James sadly passed away yesterday, and we extend our sympathy to John and on that matter. But as I always say in these situations, the words engraved in John Thompson's tombstone, I think, just suffices for every member of the Celtic family that passes. They never die, who live in the hearts they leave behind. And we wish John Hartson and his family all the best at this difficult time. Everybody loves Big John, don't they?
Absolutely. He'll never ever walk alone, and he knows that. He is forever ingrained in Celtic for that tremendous period that he had leading the line for Celtic alongside Chris Sutton and Henrik Larsson. But not just that, he's a terrific ambassador for the club off the field as well. He always backs Celtic when he's a pundit. He is unrepentant in his love for Celtic. He cannot hide it. I wouldn't say it's bias, but he is pro-Celtic all the way, and he's one of those guys who couldn't claim to have lived and breathed Celtic beforehand, but he certainly does now. So yeah, I'm sure we're both sending our condolences to John Hartson's family at this sad time. He'll never walk alone.
I think, like many people, I think it was Jock Stein that said it, Celtic might not have been his first love, but I think in Jock Stein's case and John Hartson's case, they were his last love. So
yeah, I'm sure Gordon Strachan said the same. So it's got a bit of a bug, this football club.
Yeah, correct. It's just what happens, isn't it? Anyway, guys, take care. Whatever you do, whatever you decide to do tomorrow, whether you go to the game or whether you boycott it, it's your own personal preference. But as always with these things, it's result dependent. We certainly want Celtic to win and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you to the over 900 people who joined us on the live stream, and thanks to everybody. As Ryan says, it's going to get involved in the chat. Ryan, thanks very much. Enjoyed that, mate. As I say, it was only Monday when we were last on, but it did feel like an eternity. But take care, Bud. Have a good weekend yourself, all right?
Thank you, guys. And thank you to each and every one of you for joining us today on the podcast. Really do appreciate it. We'll see you all next time on The Celtic Way. Cheers, guys.